Greetings on the channel, friends. Today I'm going to tell a story about a rich and under divorce Chris who falls in love with a mysterious stranger named Sky. Soon after, he, his ex-wife, and their child find themselves in an interesting situation. And so we begin. Young millionaire Chris, who made his capital on IT technology, lives in his secluded house in the mountains and is in the process of divorce. Talking to his wife Jamie via video link, Chris says that he delayed the moment of signing the documents as much as possible because he couldn't believe that it was over between them. Jamie made the decision to leave her husband because work has always been more important to him than family, and we also learn that they have a wonderful daughter named Willow. One languid evening, Chris meets a charming girl named Sky.
I'm Chris.
Sky.
She asks Chris to help her pick out some wine. On the way out of the store, Sky says that the cab canceled the order, and Chris kindly offers to give her a ride home. The girl tells about her friend Lisa, with whom she rents an apartment. Shortly before that, they had a fight, and Sky counted that Lisa was already asleep, so as not to have a quarrel with her again. Chris offers to go to his place and spend some time, and after which he will bring her home. But the girl refuses, however, then agrees. The girl is quite surprised by such a luxurious house. Over a glass of wine, Chris talks about himself. Some time ago, Google offered him a favorable deal, and he sold him his own development, home security applications. He himself is a sociophobic security freak, and he has a lot to protect. Sky was modeling in Los Angeles, but she hated being just a body in clothes, a plastic mannequin. She had come here for work, to find something more interesting, but she hadn't found anything, and that's why she was now working as a waitress in a bar. After a heartfelt sit-down and conversation, Sky asks to be taken home. Chris suggests the alternative to stay at his place, to which the girl happily agrees, not hiding her fantasies. After which the couple do different things, with all the consequences of this girl. Sky returns home, where she gets into an argument with her friend Lisa. After hearing her friend accuse her of loitering, Sky locks herself in her room. Meanwhile, Chris decides to go to the bar where the girl he spent a great night with works. He wants to find out why she left without letting him know. On the spot, Sky confesses that she was actually hoping he would come and is very happy to see him again. Soon she talks about herself, about how she never had a real family, because since she was 6 years old, she has been adopted so many times that she can't remember them all, and her childhood was a complete nightmare. Chris likes that the girl is honest with him, and he tells her she's wonderful. In the parking lot, they run into a robber who decides to break into a car. Chris says he doesn't want any trouble and tells the robber to just leave, but Sky acts more brutal. She throws a bottle at him and tells him to get lost. The robber ends up breaking Chris's leg and then runs away. Back home from the hospital, Chris tells her that he hired a nurse, since with that cast it will be problematic to even prepare his own meals. Sky says that she will be better than any nurse, and Chris can appreciate her main ability, making scrambled eggs in the morning. Among other things, she has some interesting fantasies, and what do you think? Ronald, the owner of the motel where Sky and Lisa rent an apartment. He is very unhappy that the girls are behind on their rent once again. He warns them that he will evict them if he does not receive the rent within a few days. It turns out that Lisa is not just Sky's friend, but her girlfriend. When she learns that Sky has decided to move in with Chris, Lisa begs her not to and says that she will die without her. Despite her entreaties, Sky moves in with Chris. Together they have a great time, drinking expensive wine and socializing under the night sky lying in the jacuzzi. After a while, Chris tells Sky that he has fallen in love with her. The girl reciprocates and tells him that it scares the hell out of her. When asked by Chris, "What are we going to do about it?" she replies that live happily ever after. Ronald finds Lisa dead in the bathtub with signs of suicide. The police arrive on the scene and ask if there is any reason to believe it was not suicide. Ronald says that the girl was desperate and her roommate left her, so it's obvious. However, the detective says that according to the databases, the girl named Sky Webb doesn't exist. Chris communicates with his wife via video link and tells her to have Jamie come over on Friday. He will sign all the paperwork and see his daughter at the same time. He also tells her that he has hired a private nurse, to which Jamie says it's very strange for him to bring a stranger into the house, since Chris is obsessed with his own safety. After this conversation, he decides to go through Sky's purse, but finds nothing but a picture of her and her friend Lisa together. Skye notices Chris going through her things, but doesn't blame him for it. She says it's okay, and she realizes he wants to get to know her better, and then they retreat back to the bed. Chris wakes up alone in the morning and can't find his phone. He learns from the news that Skye's friend has died, and the police can't figure out if it was murder or suicide. At this point, Skye arrives and says she went to get some chicken. Chris tells her about what he saw on the news and says she should go to the police. To this, Skye replies that it would be pretty stupid for her to do so because she was the one who killed her.
Why?
Because I'm the one who killed her.
With complete indifference and equanimity, Skye says that Lisa was a great lover, but too nosy. But she had an apartment, the perfect place to watch Chris for the past 2 months. She knows absolutely everything about him, that he doesn't get visitors, that the gardener won't be in for another 6 days, the exact times he sleeps, eats, and everything else. Chris realizes that their entire encounter was a calculated scam. Furious at what he's heard, Chris tells her to get out of his house. He then tries to leave himself, but the phone that is responsible for the entire security system, which he supposedly lost, is in Skye's possession. And that's when the honeymoon comes to an end. Meanwhile, Ronald finds a telescope while cleaning Lisa's apartment and starts peeping at girls from rich mansions in the mountains. At this time, Skye pulls personal information from Chris in order to strip him of all his finances and take all his wealth for herself. A little later, Ronald spots the house and sees Skye there. Chris tries to attack the girl, but he doesn't succeed as a result. Skye says that he'd better cooperate in this situation because otherwise his daughter will have a hard time. The girl decided to deprive Chris of everything, including the sale of his paintings and even furniture. An accomplice arrives at the house to sell the items, and he turns out to be the same burglar who injured Chris's leg.
Everything goes, lover boy. I'm stripping you down to the studs.
Ronald, meanwhile, waits for Skye to leave and sneaks into the house. He's in no hurry to let the prisoner go. Chris explains that Skye has been monitoring the house with her phone and she already knows he's inside. He asks to call the police, but Ronald doesn't have a phone. Obsessed with making a quick buck and leaving the scene of the crime, Ronald asks for $10,000, but after learning that Chris doesn't keep cash at home, he decides to take the Picasso painting, which is worth a conservative estimate of $5 million. By now, Skye's on her way home. Leaving unnecessary witnesses is clearly not in her plans. While she disposes of Ronald with her sword, Chris manages to escape, but all the cars are locked and Chris takes off on his motorcycle. After hitting a rock, Chris is thrown onto the road where a man picks him up. He lets him call the police, but after a minute, Chris realizes that he is not talking to the police, but to Skye. The man who picked him up turns out to be another accomplice of the girl. At the house, the accomplice tells Chris about himself, and it turns out that he is Skye's stepfather. He adopted her when she was 14 and developed in her what she was best at, seducing young, rich guys like Chris and ripping them off. He then proceeds to lecture him about rich and poor, making himself look like Robin Hood, and then goes off to play night games with Skye in bed, which Chris witnesses. Chris tells Skye that she didn't have to take it all away. He would have given it all to her anyway. Everything he has would have been shared because he loved her. To which the girl replies that it's a nice dream, but nothing more. Chris says that she took everything from him, and why not just leave? To which Skye replies that she took everything from him except for $14 million worth of securities in bonds, which are in a safe deposit box in a major U.S. bank. Chris says they can't access the safe deposit box without his presence, as he has to undergo a biometric fingerprint check. Without thinking for a long time, the stepfather makes the only right decision under the circumstances. Chris gets a visit from his wife and daughter. Jamie notices that something is wrong in the house and calls Willow to come back. Jamie asks to let her daughter go and to explain what's going on here. As a result, the robbers lock everyone in the dressing room and go to the bank with Chris's finger. The robbers try to gain access to the safe deposit box. At this time, Chris asks his daughter to sneak in through the vents to free them. Chris then tells his wife everything that happened and says that the intruders have gone to get the bonds. Jamie tells him that the bonds are no longer in the safe deposit box because on the advice of her lawyer, she took them away long ago in case she has a problem with the divorce so she can have leverage over Chris. Deceived con artists rush home. That's when the daughter frees her parents. Skye takes the gun to get rid of Chris since they don't need him anymore and they now need to find his wife. After hiding his wife and daughter, Chris attacks an accomplice and badly wounds him. At that moment, Sky appears, and the man asks to shoot Chris. However, unexpectedly, Sky shoots his accomplice. Taking advantage of the moment, Chris wounds Sky. He grabs the phone and hides in the house. After a while of walking around the house, they get into a fight. However, the fragile girl, as it might seem, is not so easy to deal with. Eventually, Willow shoots Sky with a gun, and by this time the police arrive at the house. In the last moment of the movie, the girl confesses to Chris that her name is actually Margaret. That's the end of the movie. Thank you for watching it to the end. Give this video a like, write in the comments what you think about this movie, and see you on the channel.